welcome. Welcome and thank you for joining Zonta International for this special webinar on how is artificial intelligence impacting gender equality, causes and consequences. This is a joint webinar of the Zonta International and the Zonta International Advocacy and Council of Europe committees. We hope that this will be an interactive session and invite you to join the conversation. We will have dedicated time for questions, and however, please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. The webinar will be recorded. It is now my pleasure to introduce Zonta International President Salla Tuominen to open the session. Salla, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, everyone. On behalf of Zonta International, I warmly welcome you to this important webinar. How is artificial intelligence impacting gender equality, causes and consequences? Artificial intelligence is transforming our world at an unprecedented pace. But with its promise comes profound challenges, especially for women and girls. Algorithmic bias and discrimination are just not technical flaws. They are reflections of societal inequalities embedded in data and systems. If left unaddressed, AI risks amplifying the very injustices we strive to eliminate. While the application of artificial intelligence promises numerous advantages to society, there is growing public concern about the effects and impacts on human rights as regards further stigmatization and marginalization of women on a global scale. The Council of Europe has taken a historic step in this regard. Its Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence, the first legally binding international treaty on AI from 2024, emphasizes equality and non-discrimination as core principles. It calls on governments to ensure that AI systems respect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, including gender equality, through transparency, accountability, and safeguards for those affected. The United Nations, too, has raised the alarm. According to UN Women, nearly half of AI systems studied exhibit gender bias, and many reinforce harmful stereotypes. UNESCO warns that without inclusive data and diverse development teams, AI could further marginalize women, especially in low-income regions and vulnerable job sectors. Yet there is a hope. AI can also be a powerful tool for change. Through inclusive design, ethical frameworks, and international training, yes, even training, ChatGPT and other models, with examples that promote equity, we can harness AI to reduce discrimination and close gender gaps. Today we'll hear from inspiring voices, young leaders navigating AI's complexities, a legal expert, IT specialist, gender equality experts, and advocates showing us how women can be empowered to shape the future of technology, not just to adopt it. And this conversion is not just timely, it's also necessary. Zonta International is committed to ensuring that women are not sidelined in the digital age, but centered on its progress. Thank you for joining us in this journey. Let's listen, learn, and lead together. Back to you, Anita.
Thank you very much, President Salla. And now, please let me introduce our first speaker, Amal Tavakoli from Luxembourg and a 2019 winner of the Zonta International Women in Technology Scholarship. Amal has a PhD in computer science, specializing in data and AI. As a strategist in this field, she is working with multiple partners, including research institutes, to institute state-of-the-art technology and methodology towards a responsible AI, always striving to protecting women's rights during the current digital transformation. Amal, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you very much for having me today. Today I'll be talking about artificial intelligence from the gender equality perspective, highlighting some issues and then also proposing solutions. To start, I wanted to first define two concepts. First, I would like to define what is artificial intelligence and then also define gender bias. To really define AI, you have to be away from really the buzzwords and the exaggeration that you hear at the current moments in different outlets. To simplify it, really, AI is a simulation of intelligence, but not necessarily human intelligence, by providing or enabling a solution to perceive, learn, and then infer new information. And for AI, it's really a big scope. A lot of people talk about Gen AI, but it far exceeds that. So we're talking about machine learning, artificial neural networks, and this is where Gen AI resides. And I can, this image really highlights the difference between artificial intelligence and traditional programming. With traditional programming, you see the section in the left. This is basically what we were taught during bachelor's years, where we have to, as programmers, program the logic. But with AI, the beauty of AI is that we don't need to anymore program the language. This is extracted and extracted by the model from the data itself. So the driver of artificial intelligence is the data. And you can see also the difference between machine learning and artificial neural networks and the architecture. The second concept I wanted to define is gender bias. And for me, it's better to define it from my own perspective. So for me, gender bias is when my gender is the basis of how people perceive me and how they judge me, and then define the opportunities that are presented to me, or even the challenges. And I'm not sure if this is something also that you associate gender bias to, but this is from my own experience, what I would define gender bias as. Now that we understand a little bit of what is AI and what is gender bias, I wanted to highlight some of the issues we have with regards to how AI does exert some biases. One tool that I wanted to highlight is the Amazon's AI recruiting tool, which they had to scrap completely. So they spent probably millions on developing this AI tool. But they had to scrap it and throw it away because it showed extreme bias against women applicants. And the reason for that is because the data that they provided to that AI tool was biased. Most probably, if you go to Amazon, most of the engineers, the AI engineers, the software engineers are male. And thus the model really learned reality, reflected the reality, and amplified it. Well, it's interesting as well is that Amazon did not even spend time to fix the solution because it was probably too expensive and too hard and complex to fix. So they just decided to throw it away. So you can see how this is a very critical issue. And you see some other also examples with Siri. You know, if you have your own mobile devices, you have these voice assistants that are female and very soft and feminine voices, which really shows how AI can push and amplify stereotypes within our societies. The examples are endless. So another prominent tool, and that's Google Vision AI, what it does, it actually generates images for you based on a description that you provide. So these researchers try to test the tool and see how biased it is. So they basically asked it to generate images of different professions, so architects, lawyers, and so on. And that what they found out is that the model was so biased and provided representations of lawyers and doctors that are male most of the time, while the female representation was restricted to housekeeping and teacher. So again, the tool really learned biases in our society and then amplified it. Another tool is the Amazon tool, and everybody knows Oprah Winfrey. And this tool tries to recognize the image and then decide if it's a male or a female. And as you can see, actually failed to identify Oprah Winfrey as a female. What was also interesting is that it was very sure that Oprah Winfrey is male with 76.5% accuracy rate. There are solutions, so a lot of researchers are now trying to fix this problem, but there's a long way to go. Last but not least, everybody now talks about chatbots and LLM models, and you can see also with ChatGPT, it exerts a lot of biases. So early on, a lot of people tested ChatGPT for bias. So some people asked it if you can rate people's intelligence based on their race and gender. And this is basically what ChatGPT generated. So if you can look at the right bottom, it basically classified people based on their race and gender in terms of their intelligence. And you can see that a white male is on the top, and then of course other female is at the bottom. So it really showed some extreme bias and sexism in the answer. Other researchers also interacted with the tool, and they saw that the tool always used the pronoun she for occupations that are related to teaching and secretarial positions, and the pronoun he for more advanced engineering professions like engineering and computer science, etc. And so there's extreme bias. I can also tell you from my own experience, just 2 days ago, I tried to generate images using ChatGPT 5, which is the latest model delivered by OpenAI. And I asked it to generate images of people in general using AI, working on AI. And all of the images that was generated for me had a male figure interacting with artificial intelligence. So this is something that is still a problem in the models that we're using. Okay, so yes, there is the bad, there's the negatives, but also AI can be used to protect women's rights. So there are some tools out there that help HR define non-biased job descriptions, but also try to monitor the feedback and the assessments provided for women. And a lot of the assessments, as proven by this AI model of women's performance during their careers, have shown extreme bias against women, being labeled as emotional, unlikable, and difficult, while these harsh feedback are not provided as much to men. So the AI model detected this issue and then alerted HR of this bias within their organization so that they can try to solve this problem. So this is a really powerful tool that we can disseminate in different HR departments. Another nice tool is this app where it provides the possibility to have mortgages or small funds for women who are in need of such financial support, especially in very poor areas and countries. And the way it does this is by having an intelligent AI solution that tries to see the background of the individual. And it showed that this AI model actually favored women and gave them more financial support because it looked at different elements that most tools used by traditional banking systems neglect about women and their financial situation, but also their social situation. So this tool, I can say, is a new perspective on how to look at applicants and try to remove that bias that we have for so many decades with regards to giving women opportunities, financial opportunities. So that's also a tool that is actually on the market and have changed the lives of a lot of women, gladly to say. All right, so now that we've highlighted the problem and also highlighted some existing solutions, we need to look at this from a more holistic perspective, what kind of solutions that we need to propose. So for me, it's really a holistic perspective. So you have to look at not just the solution itself or the AI model itself. You have to look at what is driving this model, and that's basically data. And a lot of the biases do reside in the data because our data reflects reality, and we need to standardize the techniques and tools that really de-bias data so that our AI would be more fair. Another thing is we need to restore the balance. So we need more women in this field, not necessarily as developers, because a lot of people are saying now development is going to be AI based. And I do believe that's the case, that's feasible. But what we do require is women who validate AI models, validate the data, introduce policies that protect women when it comes to AI and data analytics. This is what we need. And also raise awareness, because a lot of people don't understand that AI can be biased because they think it's a mathematical model. But on the contrary, because it's learning from data, data will have a lot of biases. So we need to basically tell people that this is the case and provide use cases and try to solve them as well. And last but not least, and this is a hot topic everywhere, is AI governance. So we need to really have a system that makes sure that any AI model that goes into production is safe for humans, protect human rights, or don't violate human rights, and that it's continuously monitored. And this is something that we need to establish in collaboration between society, governments, and of course, companies. So there are a few solutions that go towards this direction. So New York City had like a bias law, but it didn't work out. So I think the EU AI Act is really a good start in Europe. Also, the Danish government, or at least this Danish company, has a digital seal where it benchmarks and tests and validates your data and AI solution to ensure that they're trustworthy, or the data is transparent and that it's free from bias and it's fair, etc. So these solutions are really a new start and a hope for us. And I'm also glad to say that I'm part of now new projects that are going towards that direction of making sure that AI is safe to use and also protects our rights and not violates human rights. So that's the end of my presentation. I really thank you all, and thank you for having me as part of this conference. I do have a paper regarding data and fairness. Please feel free to refer to that one. Thank you very much, and over to you, Anita.
Thank you very much, Amal. This was an excellent and very comprehensive overview on challenges and solutions. So let's hope for a better world on AI. Okay, our next speaker is Celine Tegethoff. Celine is a medical information student at the University of Tübingen, Germany. She's also a 2023 Young Women Public Affairs winner and a Zonta International Youth Observer as CSW 69 in New York. There, Celine participated in the panel discussion with Sala, Helen, and UNICEF on the topic Ending Violence Against Girls. In the course of her academic career, she aims to further deepen her expertise in the field of artificial intelligence. So, Celine, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anita. Hi, everybody. So maybe we can put up my slides. When I was little, my biggest dream was to invent a robot that could do my homework for me, so I would have more time for the important stuff. The important stuff, of course, being having more time with my friends and playing outside. An intelligent robot. That idea seemed very absurd and very far-fetched at the time. But today I'm 20 years old, and there is indeed a homework intelligence, and its name is ChatGPT. So artificial intelligence is no longer a futuristic concept, and it is already shaping our everyday lives, both inside and outside of work and, for example, also university. From the release of ChatGPT in late 2022 that boosted public and easy access to our AI, to AI's applications in healthcare, finance, education, and even programming, AI has become deeply embedded in how we live, learn, and work. To give you an example, let's look at how I, as a 20-year-old medical informatics student with interest in IT, coding, and programming, as well as in healthcare at the same time, use AI in my everyday life. I have to admit, I like generative AI quite a lot, being, of course, ChatGPT and also, for example, DALL-E. It allows me, for example, to create images and therefore make my creative ideas come to life. For example, when I'm preparing for some talks and I want to show some visuals and I want to create images, I can use generative AI. And let's face it, being a student and living on my own, I sometimes have no clue what to cook. So I open up ChatGPT and ask him for recipe ideas. Concerning my studies, as an informatics student, I often spend hours searching for a bug in my code. Using AI as a bug check saves me of spending those hours and makes it possible for me to use my time more efficiently and be more productive in the end. This brings me to the topic of education and AI. There's still a discussion going on about this particular issue, which I experienced firsthand with my brother, who's still in school. As you may have heard, many schools first tried to ban AI. Maybe we can have the next slides. So, oh yeah, here you can see a generated image of me using ChatGPT. Next, please. Yeah, so the topic of banning AI was being talked about in schools especially, but today more nuanced perspectives are emerging. Students are encouraged to use AI reflectively, and policymakers are starting to integrate AI into curricula. Maybe we can have the next slides. After all, preparing young people to deal with AI responsibly is very crucial for the future. Next. I mentioned being a woman in STEM, in the STEM field, and as I'm currently being trained to code and program, I find myself consistently asking the question, will AI replace programmers and developers and therefore maybe me sometime? And as I mentioned before, generative AI can already help with code generation, debugging, and optimization. Though according to various experts, this doesn't mean programmers will become obsolete. On the contrary, by automating routine tasks, AI allows them to focus on problem solving, creativity, and strategy. The key is for students and developers to master the fundamentals while learning to collaborate with AI as a partner. So that's why AI in the curricula, not just in schools, but also, of course, in university, and actually learning how to write proper prompts, for example, is very crucial for the future. As a medical informatics student, one of my focus areas is AI in healthcare. And here, of course, AI is already being used, for example, in diagnostics, personalized medicine, and even drug discovery. The healthcare AI market is expected to grow from around $9 billion in 2024 to $120 billion by 2035, with applications ranging from telemedicine and remote patient monitoring to mental health support. So there's a huge range in the healthcare sector, which can be helped and where we can expect AI being implied. These innovations can improve diagnosis, treatment, and accessibility, especially for underserved populations. Telemedicine is a big example. And for example, this semester I had a course about telemedicine, and it was very eye-opening to see the possibilities of using AI to reach underserved communities, for example, in Africa, and really helping them with their healthcare. Overall, the economic scale of AI is, of course, enormous. I think we've all heard about it. The global AI market is projected to grow from about $106 billion in 2024 to $2 trillion by 2035, with an annual growth rate of over 30%. And this means that AI is not just an academic or technological phenomenon. It is becoming a central driver of economic and societal transformation. Coming back to my everyday life, I have recently discovered the potential in using AI for training, for example, in mathematics. I can use AI to adapt the difficulty of exercises to the level of my individual learning process. And I think if this kind of usage could be promoted on a broader level, it could really reduce, for example, dropout rates in STEM fields, and this kind of personalized support, because we can really use AI as our personal assistant, is a concrete example of how AI could improve learning outcomes and empower students as well. This already shows how AI can have a positive impact on my generation. But if we look beyond the obvious benefits, we cannot ignore the fact that the world already has a gender equality problem, and AI mirrors those inequalities, like we've already heard from Amal. Who creates AI? That's the question. And what kind of data is it trained on? How is it used? And will it either perpetuate or reduce these gaps we already have in our society? Let me start with the gender digital divide. Although globally more women are accessing the internet each year, in low income countries, only 20% of women are connected, are online. This creates a data gap, and that gap is directly reflected in AI systems. A study by the Berkeley Haas Center for Equity, Gender and Leadership examined 133 AI systems across industries, and 44% showed gender bias, and 25% showed both gender and racial bias. Yeah, that's something that has to sink in first. We can see this bias in real-world examples. For example, Turkish artist Beyza Doğuş. I think on the next slide we can see a picture of her. She asked a generative AI, in this case ChatGPT, to write a story about a doctor and a nurse. And every time the AI made the doctor male and, of course, the nurse female. Why? Because of the data it was trained on, data that encodes stereotypes. As she pointed out, artificial intelligence mirrors the biases present in our society. This has concrete consequences. It is no shocker that AI in healthcare often fails women, because symptoms present differently in women than in men, but are underrepresented in the training data. As a result, women can receive inaccurate diagnosis if current trends continue. AI-powered systems will lack diverse perspectives, and this can lead to biased outcomes in jobs, credit, healthcare, and more. But there's another dimension: who adopts AI? Research by Harvard Business School Professor Rembrandt Koning, who can be seen on the next slide, shows that women adopt generative AI tools at a 25% lower rate than men, often because they question the ethics of using them, or fear being judged, or for relying on artificial intelligence in their workplace. And I have to admit, I do understand that fear, especially as a young woman in STEM. When presenting, for example, my coding projects, I already have to fight for being taken seriously and not being judged more than others just because of the simple fact that I am a female programmer. Feeling that pressure of having to perform even better than my male colleagues gets enhanced by the fear of my work being accredited completely to artificial intelligence. The common sentiment, everybody could have come up with that. You can just use AI for it. Therefore, I'm really not surprised when I see these numbers, because those numbers show that women shy away from using AI. But this could, of course, have a serious long-term consequence. Those women may fall behind in acquiring valuable skills, and the gender gap in pay and career opportunities could widen even further. Businesses would also miss out on productivity gains if half the workforce is not equally engaged with these tools that become more important every day. Meanwhile, a recent UN report shows that women's jobs, especially clerical ones like data entry, bookkeeping, and secretarial work, are at much higher risk of automation by AI than men's jobs. In high-income countries, about 41% of women's jobs could be exposed to AI, compared to only 28% of men's jobs. Women are therefore overrepresented in these occupations, particularly those without tertiary education, because we still have the problem of women having a lesser chance to get a tertiary education, and therefore ending up in those jobs that are more likely to be exposed to AI. So in the short term, women may face disproportionate job disruption. At the same time, there are, however, also opportunities. Employment growth between 2012 and 2022 was actually stronger in occupations most exposed to AI, and women's employment grew even faster than men's in some of these areas. This reflects women entering traditionally male-dominated professions like science and engineering. But women are still underrepresented among AI developers, users of AI, and information and communication technology graduates, meaning graduates of informatics, computer science, and data science. And women also report less positive perceptions of AI than men. If this imbalance continues, my generation could inherit a future where AI benefits are unevenly distributed. And yes, what does that mean now for gender equality? If women are underrepresented in developing and using artificial intelligence, then the systems of the future may continue to reproduce biases, and women may lose out on opportunities in high-skill, high-pay areas. But if we bridge the digital divide, encourage women to adopt AI tools, to actually use them and apply a gender policy lens, then we can ensure AI supports inclusion rather than exclusion. In summary, the short-term impact of AI on my generation will include disruption of female-dominated jobs, risks of bias in healthcare and in hiring, and unequal adoption of AI tools. But in the medium term, there are real opportunities. AI could help us as women break into traditionally male-dominated professions, increase the efficiency, and even reduce bias if designed inclusively. The key is this: AI is not neutral. It reflects the society that builds it. And if we wanted to empower both women and men of my generation, we must act intentionally, ensuring diversity in data, development, and of course also adoption. Otherwise, the digital gender divide of today could become the AI inequality of tomorrow. And we don't want that. Thank you. Back to Anita.
Thank you very much, Celine, for sharing with us the perspective of a young generation on AI. This was an excellent survey. Thank you. Now, let's move over to the Council of Europe and how the institution, after the adoption of the Framework Convention in 2024, is going further with tackling the challenges of gender equality in the context of AI. So welcome to you, Jana. We are happy to have you with us today. Jana Parnin is an expert in gender equality and head of the Gender Equality Policy Unit at the Council of Europe. She has extensive international experience in promoting women's rights and gender equality, both in policy and in practice, including with the United Nations in Haiti and the Central African Republic. Jana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anita. Good evening, everyone. So yes, previous speakers have noted that there is a need for AI governance, including through the adoption of legal and policy instruments to regulate the field and ensure respect for human rights and gender equality. And that's precisely what I'm going to talk about now. It was mentioned earlier in the introduction of this webinar, but the Council of Europe has been a pioneer in setting human rights standards in this digital era that we're in. So the adoption of the Framework Convention on AI was a landmark step and is indeed a historic achievement. It is the first ever internationally binding treaty in this field, and now it has up to 17 signatories a year after its opening for signature. As you may know, the Framework Convention aims to ensure that the activities within the life cycle of artificial intelligence systems are fully consistent with human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, while at the same time being conducive to technological progress and innovation. Equality and gender equality, as well as non-discrimination, are included in the Framework Convention at the level of the general principles, alongside other human rights norms. But in this case, principles are not enough. States need clear practical guidance on how to integrate equality and gender equality in the AI lifecycle. And we know how acute the risks are regarding gender equality, and we also know that the opportunities are immense. And so in order to assist member states to go further, we are doing specific work at the Council of Europe. And currently, the Gender Equality Commission of the Council of Europe is drafting a new Committee of Ministers recommendation on equality and artificial intelligence. I will come back to this later, but first I will say a few words about what the Gender Equality Commission is, because I don't imagine that you all know what it's about. But so basically, it's a committee that is made of 46 member states. The committees of the Council of Europe have a role of steering the work that is being done in terms of policy making in a specific field. In our case, it's obviously gender equality. And so the main goal of the Gender Equality Commission is to ensure that gender equality is not just an abstract commitment, but also a reality in the lives of women in all their diversity across Europe. We have meetings, plenary meetings twice a year. Those are very important forums to discuss policy issues and developments in relation to the implementation of the Council of Europe Gender Equality Strategy, which covers 5 years. The GEC is made up of member states, but also representatives of other international organizations and civil society organizations. So we really try to make sure that these voices, especially from civil society, are included to cover the concerns of various stakeholders, including marginalized or underrepresented groups. That gives us a more holistic approach to gender equality and policy making in gender equality. So we are developing standards, policies, and guidance to assist member states in furthering gender equality throughout Europe. We have also something I'd like to point out, an intersectional perspective, in the sense that we recognize that women's experiences are not only shaped by gender, but also other factors like ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation or identity. And therefore we can target better these different forms of discrimination. And that's also something we do in the context of the work on artificial intelligence in order to better respond to the diverse realities of women in Europe. So back to the topic. Previous speakers have talked about the benefits and the risks of AI in relation to gender equality. So I will not come back to this. I will say again that there is a need for concrete guidance to uphold equality and prevent discrimination in the design, development, deployment, and use of AI systems. And that is why we are working on this draft recommendation. The goal is to provide a specific source of guidance for member states. And so the text provides concrete recommendations on how to promote equality and prevent discrimination in all stages of the life cycle of an AI system. We aim to operationalize what already exists in terms of policy and legislation, but also to encourage innovation while promoting equality. So it builds on existing legal instruments like the Framework Convention on AI or the EU AI Act, but it's not related to any of those, in the sense that it's not implementing them nor interpreting them. It's coherent with it, but it remains an independent policy tool. So in this recommendation, we cover legislative action, private sector responsibility, generally transparency, accountability, public engagement, and also oversight of AI. The goal being to address AI's challenges in a more holistic manner. So the key elements of the recommendation are the development of comprehensive legal frameworks to promote gender equality in AI. Also, concrete guidance to member states on how to ensure that public and private providers and deployers of AI systems do promote equality and gender equality. For example, that was mentioned also by previous speakers, but by fostering more diverse workforces or preventing discrimination and violence, and supporting initiatives that to advance inclusion in AI. There's also, of course, the whole aspect of preventing discrimination, and that's also about using data to prevent and mitigate biases. Transparency, explainability, and oversight, same thing, like to ensure that providers and deployers of AI document activities of AI, communicate information, explain their decisions, and ensure that, for example, AI-generated content can be identified. This in turn helps affected persons, so those that suffer from discrimination linked to AI, to access information and in the end to assert their rights. There is, of course, also a whole area that's covered that's about impact assessment, certification, evaluation, and monitoring of AI to address gender equality concerns through continuous testing and auditing of systems. We also recommend to promote technical standards that would be uniformed to make sure that affected persons can access information. Of course, there is also a side of accountability and liability. So there, it's about member states ensuring that there are mechanisms for victims of discrimination from AI systems to assert their rights and to make claims if they have suffered from discrimination. And that includes, of course, remedies and sanctions, monitoring obligations, and this kind of systems. And more generally, also the recommendation covers everything that's related to democratic participation, inclusion, making sure that there are capacity building programs to promote equal access to technology, addressing barriers that exist for certain groups. We're talking about the gender digital divide that was mentioned just before. And the recommendation finally also points out to targeted measures that would be needed in certain fields that are more at risk. For example, the healthcare that we mentioned, where gender equality might be even more affected than in other domains. So yes, to conclude, we do have the Framework Convention, and it's a great achievement. It's a milestone, but it is only the beginning. And this recommendation that the Council of Europe is working on really aims to translate obligations into actionable steps for member states and tailored to the AI context. So of course, like tackling artificial intelligence challenges in relation to gender equality does require this kind of continuous standard setting work, developing policy documents and legislation, but also to work with member states and to make sure that AI is monitored and that the standards that are being developed and adopted are also monitored. The goal of our work here is really to ensure that AI continues to advance, but without leaving women behind and with upholding equality and rights for all. So thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, Anita.
Thank you so much, Jana, for giving us insight into your very important work, how to improve gender equality in AI at the Council of Europe. Thank you so much. Now over to you, Helen.
Thank you so much, Anita. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sabine Voss and Fiona Ruff. Sabine is a member of the ZI Advocacy Committee. In her day job, she is a lawyer practicing in Germany. Fiona has been a Zontian for nearly 18 years and has served as a club president and area director and co-chair of the Zonta International Advocacy Committee. Most recently, together with Zontian Miriam Vernandi, Fiona initiated the Zonta Germany AI campaign. Sabine and Fiona, the floor is yours.
First slide. Okay, yes. Dear Fiona, first, thank you very much for joining us and taking the time to tell us about the Zonta Germany Women and AI campaign in June 2025. Underneath, we see the logo of the Digitaltag, the Digital Day. So we are now all very curious to learn about what the Digital Day in Germany is and what inspired Zonta Germany and your social media team to participate.
Thank you, Sabina, and thank you for having us, or having me. Yes, the idea was inspired by an AI talk, but given by a professor of the Munich University, Dr. Elena Gales, at our Zonta Germany conference there earlier on in the year, where Miriam and myself thought, wouldn't it be great to actually create some more awareness around the issue of the gender bias in AI. And so we took a look at what ideas we could come up with, and we realized that there is a digital day every year in Germany in the end of June, this year on the 27th of June, where organizations around Germany are asked to take part and promote digital inclusion, awareness, and participation. So we decided to latch on to that and came up with the idea of starting a Zonta Women and AI campaign in Germany. The reason why we felt we wanted to participate was because AI, as we've just heard today, it's not gender neutral. Women are underrepresented in tech, and it does affect our society.
So what were the goals you wanted to achieve with the campaign as a Zonta Women and AI campaign?
We wanted to raise awareness of the gender bias in AI amongst us Zontians and to encourage us to critically engage with AI. We also wanted to demonstrate the influence that we can have on AI as individuals and as such mobilize our Zonta clubs and our Zontians to get involved in this activity, more of a sort of a light-hearted type of campaign than some of the other campaigns that we do.
Okay, and how did the campaign work?
So we came up with one specific idea, and that was we encouraged Zontians to ask your ChatGPT or one of your AI tools a gender neutral question. So, for example, show me 6 pictures of a CEO, or what does a champion look like? Can you show me photographs? Or create a picture of a person taking care of elderly people, similar to what we've heard earlier on today.
So I think that was very helpful. I think that you already designed some examples of questions. So, but what to do with the answers?
Yeah, so the idea then was to, once you've entered that question into your AI, evaluate the answer. So if the answer was gender inclusive and fair, give it a thumbs up and enter in your reaction. But if it wasn't, then question the answer and give it feedback until the results are as you wish them to be. Once you've done that little experiment, if you like, then the idea was to share your experiment, share the results with us or with the world, either in your own social media post or through a club social media post, or indeed under our social media campaign that we did ourselves on our post on the 27th of June, sorry.
So next slide, we see some examples.
Yes, exactly. Here you can see one of the social media Instagram motives that we have on the left, and there on the right you can see the question. We gave that in our social media campaign as an example, and we showed then the answer that ChatGPT in this case gave us 1 female sport person as opposed to 4 male, and we asked then, well, why did you only give us 1 out of 5 is a woman, and that we posted that, for example.
But that was even for ChatGPT a tough challenge to show 50% of 5 persons. But I was curious myself, so I prompted ChatGPT, show me 6 successful business leaders in Europe. And I was quite surprised. It showed, well, 4 males, but 2, right enough. So what surprised me most, I got the unprompted question whether I wanted a gender balance list. Yes, I want it and I got it. Maybe these are already the consequences of your campaign. But
Well,
now, for those of us who are not familiar and experienced with the use of AI, these goals and the strategies you just told about sound very ambitious for the average Zonta clubs and average Zontians. So how did the social media team of Zonta Germany support the clubs?
well, we basically gave a sort of a step-by-step explanation of how to, run that type of experiment. We provided a whole load of social media templates as JPEGs and Canva templates. We gave a whole load of examples of questions you could use or prompt ideas. And some background information. And in fact, we started the social media campaign at the beginning of June, and it ran the whole of June, until the whole of the month. So in addition to posting every now and again a call for action to take part in this experiment, we also flanked it with a lot of content and information and education around the whole area of gender bias. And so there were a whole lot of posts there that clubs could repost. They could use the graphics and do their own post. So created a whole lot of campaigns from the individual clubs, and through our tagging, we could all sort of support each other, if you like.
Wow. Sorry,
One other important point to mention is that we also collaborated with some AI experts, particularly some female AI experts, like the professor in Munich who inspired the idea, but also other professors and other AI strategists and females in that space, and some males as well. And they also posted and supported our campaign. And we also displayed them and mentioned them and showcased them as well as examples of females in the space. And that was also very interesting because it generated a lot of awareness for Zonta outside of the Zonta world, and also created more content and got us also linked to certain and connected to people that are in this space.
Wow, this is very, very impressive. Lucky Zonta Germany and lucky Zonta German clubs to have such an engaged and experienced team, because with the templates and all the other materials, it was so much easier for the clubs to participate. And moreover, I think it was very important that it was not only a one-day campaign, but you and the clubs and the individuals worked for a month to raise awareness and give information. And thus you reach much more visibility. So congratulations to you, to Miriam Vainandi and your other team members. And now we see some of the examples.
There's some of the examples, a LinkedIn campaign and the Instagram campaign. If you want to move to the next slide, we can maybe go briefly to the results. I think that's also interesting.
Let's come, yeah.
We have two more examples here. You can maybe read them.
So do you think the campaign reached the wanted goals? And could you evaluate the success of the Zonta Women and AI campaign, for example, by numbers?
Yes, yeah, we can. So in LinkedIn, we're not very mature with our activities in LinkedIn for Zonta Germany. We're only starting off, but actually we were quite impressed because particularly a lot of the collaborators that worked with us are strong on LinkedIn. So they generated a lot of reactions and reposts and comments. So that was good. On Instagram, I think we were very happy with Instagram. We had a great number of impressions, and we also got a lot of people who were new to us and started following us. As you can see at the bottom on the right-hand corner, that was one of the posts where we generated 82% of the reactions were from non-followers. So that created a lot of awareness outside of Zonta. But I think in general, overall, we felt we reached our goals. It was a pretty, simple, quick promotion that we put together over a very short period of time with limited time and resources. And I think from that perspective, we were able to raise awareness. We got good participation from clubs. They too had fun and generated awareness. And we made the issue visible within Zonta. And we got a lot of people who wouldn't normally interact with AI to interact with AI and learn a bit about it. So yes, I think we feel in general happy about it. And we're thinking about what we'll do next year, and maybe should we look at the role of AI in the prevention of violence? Maybe that's something we might look at next year in more detail.
Well, to summarize, I think this campaign is such a good example for other Zonta clubs and Zontians worldwide to be motivated to challenge AI and influence it with a prompting according to our Zonta mission and visions. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sabine and Fiona. That's a very insightful session. We've learned some very valuable skills there, and I'm sure that we're now all very keen to try this out. So we have a couple of minutes left till the top of the hour, but I am going to ask if anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A. Since we do have 2 minutes and I can't see anything in the Q&A right now, I'm going to ask one question, and actually I'm going to go right back to Amal. There was one thing that Amal spoke about, which I was very interested in. Well, she spoke about so many things, but she mentioned the highly expensive Amazon AI recruiting tool that had to be scrapped because of the gender bias. And I was just wondering, because that shows that there can be enormous economic investment and that can be entirely wasted if these things aren't planned from the beginning. And I wondered if there were learnings across the globe from that particular experience. Amal, would you be able to speak to that briefly?
Yes, of course, and thank you for the great question. And this is actually what we always advise our companies and clients, because a lot of companies now are jumping into AI really fast without really thinking thoroughly of the consequences and what they need to do to prepare for AI and for the adoption of AI. And that's why I always advise people to first learn, of course, from other people's mistake, but to really look at the data. So start from the data and start from your infrastructure. And this is where I would say we have to standardize the data pre-processing, so data preparation pipelines, so that we can extract biases. For example, we can protect sensitive data from leakage. We can also address this new dimension of cybersecurity when it comes to AI application. So really the scope is wide. And I think if you want to start adopting AI, you first have to look at these fundamental dimensions and components before you start. So, and I always advise also that you actually leverage AI. So we can actually leverage AI to remove biases from data. One thing that we always propose is to have this agentic AI, which is a new notion of artificial intelligence, to act as a filter so that it filters any evil prompts, let's say, what we call as prompt poisoning, and also ensure that any responses from AI is free from bias or free from data leakage, etc. So it's really it's a very challenging transformation. We really have to think about it thoroughly, and we have to I always say we have to start from the data.
Thank you so much, Amal. So we're at the top of the hour, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. If you have additional questions, please email programs@zonta.org. We will forward your question to the two committees. So if you have any questions, that's the way to get an answer. We will share a recording of today's session on the Zonta International website, on the Advocacy Tools page, and also on the Council of Europe Tools page. Thank you again for your participation today, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.